I in China they're developing the theory of the three stages, and the earliest stage they depict that it looks a certain way, has a certain amount of private ownership of capital. The second stage has a more public ownership. It's abolished the small area of control that capital had, and then the third stage is formally known as what Marx would have called in what Marx calls in the Critique of the Gotha program, the higher stage of communism, from each
Hmm.
according to their ability to each according to their need. Again, another framework that Marx provides is the lower stage, being the stage of socialism, of the dictatorship of the proletariat. Um, there exists a condition where classes haven't been fully abolished, but the proletariat is in control, and their task is to solidify that control, to strengthen the state so that it is able to repress the elements of the old order that want the old order back, to repress those in between elements that have lingering ideology from the old order. And that dictatorship of the proletariat stage is thought of as socialism. He uses the lower stage of communism to describe it. It's got the birthmarks of capitalist society as well, one of which is still having a state, which is a feature of class societies in general. A state exists so that one class can oppress another. The difference is that under socialism, it's the working class, the vast majority of people, 99% of the people in a given society, who oppress the 1% that in the previous order was the one that oppressed everyone else and exploited everyone. So that would be the lower stage. The higher stage would be communism, from each according to their ability to each according to their need. Again, thinking about labor in this way that we talked about it earlier in the stream, as something that's as a sort of activity that is inextricably linked with the concept of flourishing for human beings, with the concept in Greek, the telos, the end, the highest good for human beings is that form of creative work that we can endeavor only fully under a socialist society. I think that uh, maybe the three stage idea is more correct today because of the realization that after socialism took root in one, two, three, four countries, it didn't just explode and take root everywhere else. That it still has a monster called capitalism in its imperialist stage that it has to fight against, and that a lot of the ideals that we strive towards, we need to see them as ends that we're fighting towards, but not as ways of judging socialist societies of whether they're worthy of our support or not. Doing so is a participation in what I call the purity fetish, having this pure marker, this pure idea that you use as a way to judge stuff that's in the actual world. So I think something like a three-stage tier would be appropriate in order to think about that, how that first stage that Marx wasn't really able to foretell, how it's a little bit more complicated than how he describes the lower stage of communism in Critique of the Gotha program.
Hmm. I have a question for Carlos or Noah, whoever wants to answer, and maybe it applies a little bit to what you said, Carlos, about